Good morning. I am extremely excited this morning to introduce the guest for this graduate special session. Retiring from UT Austin after a distinguished career of over 20 years, we know him as one of the most preeminent voices in conducting, artistry, rehearsing, just how to be an all-around solid, good human being and director. His knowledge comes from experience teaching at all levels and at the biggest stages, and just absolutely just years of service to our profession. He's really propelled this medium, and I am excited to learn along with all of you for the remainder of this session. Can you please welcome Richard Floyd?
Thank you very much. We'll have to see how long this session lasts because my voice has decided to, I feel like I'm going through puberty. But I just thought of this as I watched all of you walk in the door. The reality that as you entered, I was looking at the future of a life and a career that I've lived for 60 years. And that's pretty exciting to be on this side of it and looking at your side of it. And I hope you are equally excited about what it means to you. The fact that this is the Big Ten, but the Big Ten keeps growing. So I'm not so sure that maybe this is not the Big Ten gathering, it's the Big Bunch. Yeah. But anyway, I'm delighted to be here. I think to a certain extent I'm totally an anomaly, and I have no reason, I have an idea why I'm standing up here. I do not have a doctorate, and I have just simply enjoyed the journey of all these years, and I haven't carried the label of director of bands for over 40 years. So, but that's one of the most vivid memories, a part of my life, of what I've done, and I'm very, very thankful to Todd for reaching out to me and asking me to do this. You are looking at an anomaly in terms of my journey, but you're also looking at the luckiest guy on the planet. And every day is a celebration of what we all love and do. At your point in your journey, I don't know if you've ever thought about this, there's only 4 stages of our life. The first one is, who is Dick Floyd? The second one is, can we get Dick Floyd? The third one is, can we get somebody like Dick Floyd? And the fourth one is, who is Dick Floyd? So we're all somewhere on that journey. And it's a beautiful journey that it is. If you allow me to, I'm not going to take long. I want to take just a very brief moment just to kind of give you some of my background. So anything I say, you can put in context as where I'm coming from, as opposed to where you are and where you're going. But I grew up in Texas. I decided when I was in high school, there was nothing I wanted to do but teach music. I was in love with it, and I wanted to share my passion, my love for it. And I was going to be a good Texas high school band director at some point. Didn't turn out that way. But I did. I taught middle school band for 5 years. I taught high school for 6 years. And there was something at that point that was missing. I was embracing it. I was loving it. I was content, and I was happy with it, but I was not satisfied. I wanted something to take further. And so at one point I was going to go back. I had an offer to go be a TA and start on graduate degrees. And somebody told me during that time, they said, you know, you're going to think one of these days you might want to be on faculty at university. You just want to go ahead and get your feet together, put it, and then start. Just go ahead and throw it out there. You know, what do you got to lose? So I did, and I was 31 years old. And the second job I applied for was Baylor University. And 6 weeks later, they offered me the position. And I was kind of like the proverbial dog that chases a fire truck. finally catches one and doesn't know what the heck to do with it. But that was a monumental change in my life, of course, when that happened, and we went from there. And I was at Baylor University for 10 years. I did a residency for 2 years at the University of South Florida. I actually was going to go there. They had a failed search, and they just wanted to bring somebody in for a year. And so I did, and went and did that. And one of the most amazing things I discovered while I was in Florida was at the University of South Florida, this is not true now, but it was then, but is the fact that it's 20 minutes from the beaches and there's no marching band. And that was pretty cool. And they gave me a lot of time to be in schools, make connections, directors with students, so forth. So it was a joyful time. Then the opportunity to go to Austin came up in 1984. Been there ever since. And that's home. And it's been an amazing journey. I'll say just a couple more quick things, and then I'll kind of share with you kind of where I hope we can go with this. Is if you ask me even 10, 15 years ago, you know, what are my core beliefs? What it is that I'm about? What it is I want to have? What is my vision? My friends, I had a book that big. I had lots of stuff that I thought that this is what is important. This is the things that we need to do. And you know, that book kept getting thinner and thinner, and fewer words. And it's finally down that there's only two things really. The first one is my goal that I want to do my best to make the best music I am capable of and sharing it with students. And in the process of doing that, my goal always is to strive to take students to a place they've never been before. I think our goal is to open doors and make those kinds of artistic connections. And then finally, all that is embraced in the thought that the most important thing that any of us do is make a difference in the lives of other people through the art of music and our passion for that art. So, I mean, that's kind of where I am, where I'm coming from as a human being. And I do want us to think just for a moment about the fact that we're very engaged in music making, and we're very engaged in the artistry of conducting, communicating, and so forth. But I think we all have to step back occasionally and look in the mirror and remember, we're educators, we're teachers. And our vehicle for teaching is that music itself. I have decided just to cast a bigger net. One of the things I did, I want to share this with you, if you will. And anytime I say anything, anybody wants to raise their hand and say, what about? Please don't hesitate to just jump right in, because I will be here for you. But it's reality that I just thought, okay, I think I'm going to reach out to some of my colleagues, just ask them, give me a few bullet points that you always share with your conducting students, the highest priorities. I was told by several people that really and truly the three basic core issues here are being involved in graduate school, being accepted to graduate school, what do you do when you're in graduate school, and then what do you do when you enter as a young member of the profession. And so those were the questions I posed to them, and I intentionally did not pose it to any Big Ten directors, because you all know each other. But I did reach out to people, and I'm just going to touch on a few of their bullet points, if I may, and just some of the things that came back to me. And I gave them a blank sheet of paper. The first person I heard from, and I say this with total love in my heart, this was the first time I ever reached out to this person that he got back to me immediately. And that was Steve Davis at UMKC. But and he talked totally about the profile of an ideal graduate student. That was his take on it. And he just posed it questions. He says, here's what I'm looking for in a graduate student. Are they good people? Do they yearn to be expressive? Can they inspire people? We're going to touch back on inspiration several times before our time together is over. Are they driven and proactive? Are they open and rigorous in their work ethic? And finally, is it in their blood or is it just a job? And he said, I just started typing down things, and he said, this is my passion. This is what I feel and hope and dream that we can have the students that he gets to work with, and the kind of students that I'm sure that you have a vision for being. The second person that I contacted, probably anybody in here know the name Ed Protzman? A couple of you do? Okay. Where did you know Ed from?
I knew Ed when he was with me in high school.
Okay, right. And that was where I first met him. My wife and I went up there several times, did residencies with him. It was a wonderful high school band program. And Ed is now the director at the University of Oregon in Portland. He wanted to make that step. He finished his doctorate this last year. I think he's finished with it. I know he's very near the end of it. But I thought it'd be interesting to ask somebody that's there. He's just one step ahead of a lot of you guys. And I thought, okay, what would Ed say to you if he was here? And this is another thread that comes through with some really interesting twists. A great one from Rob Carnahan. I'll get the other one. But he says, save everything, and put it in one organized space. Make sure to have someone in the field that you respect review your resume or your CV. Often the same material organized differently on a resume stands out in a way that would be more appealing to viewers. And I'm going to suggest to you, I just noted my person. This is not taking that information and sharing it with a colleague, a fellow graduate student. This is taking the information and taking it to a heavyweight. It's been there and done that. And they will be objective with you. Keep my voice going here. And I thought this was an interesting thing that he said. Organization can often beat out talent when it comes to sharing your materials and starting a job. He has this suggestion, and this was after he's had one semester as a university conductor. These all sound so obvious in a way, but they're absolutely pearls of evidence of wisdom. Be nice to everyone all the time. Carolyn, you're not in it. You know that, don't you? Yeah, absolutely. And as a new faculty member, you will be unaware of negative undercurrents within the faculty. And they're going to be there, right? So just be nice to everybody. I had not thought about this, but I think this is a very good point. It depends on the kind of university you're involved with. Treat adjunct faculty even better than full-time faculty. They are really hustling to make ends meet. Be understanding that they're not always in the building, but include them in every communication that you distribute. Even though they're adjunct, they're still family. They're still part of the vision. Seek advice and counsel from studio faculty when making decisions about ensemble instrumentation. And the fact that the culture in any two institutions is going to be very, very different in how students learn and what their priorities might be. In other words, understanding the culture is absolutely essential. Be totally open. Be 100% receptive to your new teachers and conductors that you come into. And again, noted right there, striking my notes right there. Still like an artist. Any of you know this book? I've seen. I can ask a question like that, and it's funny to be up here like some people say. It's a delightful little read, and there's a lot of really wonderful thoughts in it. And I'll only share one because this one is so evident, because it's so easy for us to say, yeah, I know that. Never heard that before. And this was a French writer, Grad. He said, everything that needs to be said has already been said. But since no one was listening, everything must be said again. There's an incredible amount of truth in that as a teacher. I told him to do that. So always be listening. And then finally, his suggestion was, let go of comparing yourself to others. Be yourself. The one I missed. Yes, this was golden. Be sure to always portray yourself, and this is in the interview process, as who you are. If you sell yourself as something you're not, the interview process will be uncomfortable and unauthentic. Even worse, you might get a job where those who hired you believe you're something different than who you really are. So the notion of trying to model ourselves for their expectations rarely has a happy ending. Shifting to a different personality, this is a person that all of you, I'm sure, will know. He's one of my dearest friends, lives about 15 minutes from me, but I reached out to Jerry Junkin and asked Jerry what some of his thoughts that he would include. And here's her far more pragmatic, but absolutely bullseyes. And he broke it down on this. Grad student applications. Make sure all of your materials have a professional look. And he goes on to say, it's amazing how many applications I receive with misspelled words and inverted reference, like I would love to study at Texas University. It's not Texas University, it's the University of Texas. And just knowing the specific details, he said, immediately tells him something about how much work have they done, what did they know, how committed they are to this vision. This is a great one. For videos, if you're submitting a rehearsal video, just include actual rehearsal, not 20 minutes of your daily warm-up routine, announcements, and singing happy birthday to your drum majors. For conducting performance video, make sure the video, this is a great process, make sure that the video frame is oriented correctly into the view of the conductor. It's not so distant that it is not readable. This was great. For the in-person interview, the vibe, the word he uses, vibe check, the human interaction. He says it is a real thing, and it is as important as the conducting. People are gauging whether or not they would like to work with you, and how open you are to instruction, as well as what kind of a team player you are. And during that time, if there's an opportunity to pitch in and help or do something that shows interaction, do it. And I'm going to just give a quick example of that that has totally nothing to do with collegiate level interactions, but it has to do with my wife, by the way, she's also a music educator. and a band director, and mainly in middle school. Sometimes people tell me, well, do you really understand what goes on in middle school? And my response is, well, yes, because I have middle school for dinner every friggin' night. But when a university says they have a student coming to be a student teacher with her, she always made it possible that when whatever time that she was meeting that person for the first time, she made sure that she was in the band hall setting up chairs. And one of the things she was waiting to see, did they say, what can I do? Or can I help with the chairs? Or did they stand there and say, I'm here, Stephanie? So being able, from the very beginning, to think of ways to be engaged. And lastly, to be accepted into an advanced degree program, you need to express you want to pursue a degree. And he goes on to say, to help me get a college job is not a proper motivation. To help me to be the best conductor and musician I can be is. And this is another name that you probably know, a guy named Bob Reynolds. This is a great suggestion. Maybe some of you, again, these are things that maybe have been said, but if they've been said, are you doing them? Video every rehearsal that you do. Every rehearsal. Not only can students learn from reviewing the rehearsals, but equally important, they should keep the best videos on a separate video to be used in the application process. And every time they believe that the current video is better than one they have on their application video, they'll re-edit it and put that one in it. So that it always is up to date with your very best work. Not trying to decide what that might be 10 days before the deadline for something in the application. And he said, universities usually want, oh, this is my wife right here.
Hi, everybody.
Universities usually want rehearsal videos. Several times one of my students applied for a position, and because they had followed this practice, they didn't have to scramble at the last minute to put a video together. Also remember, and this is important, search committees will only watch a very short segment before they decide if they want to see more. Therefore, put your best stuff at the first of the video. Don't have the best stuff at the end of the video. The committee will probably never see it. And you're gonna say, most beginning college jobs, most have some kind of marching band connection with them. So make sure, I don't care how many times you want to conduct the Mozart Serenade, the Hidden Symphony, keep your marching chops up. When applying for a college position, only ask people who for sure will give you a positive recommendation. Don't take a chance on someone who will give you only a lukewarm recommendation. I will tell you from my point of view, I've had that happen countless times. Somebody will reach out to me, I know their name, maybe I work with them in a conducting workshop, or they heard their group at a conference of some kind, and they want a recommendation. And I'm very candid, I don't have enough depth to really give you the kind of recommendation that you're wanting. So sometimes when they ask, they don't ask because they really know that person, but they ask because they just want a recommendation from that person. If I get a recommendation from Jerry Junket or Rob Carnahan or Gary Hill on my resume, that'll help. Not if they don't know you personally and intimately. This is Damon Talley, who is now at LSU, has been there for several years. He spoke a lot about admiration and trust, and just the professional connections that we have. And his final statement was, I love this, remember how unbelievably fortunate we are to get to do this as our life work. We can get caught up in the day-to-day and forget the fact that we are on a journey with our passion that others only wish they had. So love every day. Love every day. And I say often, and I say it with total honesty, I've never worked a day in my life. I've labored harder some days than others, but not work. Rob Carnahan, Miami. Rob was, and here's an example, he was director of the Longhorn Band for a number of years before he went to Miami. Some of his are very simplistic and some of them major politicized. And he lives his first one, and he put it in all caps. Be nice to all people. And he went on to talk about timely professional communication is undoable. And I'll give you a quick example of that, if I may. I was contacted recently about doing a festival, conducting an honor band residency at a university that will remain nameless. And it was fairly late in the scheduling process. And I don't know when you have these dates available, would you be interested in doing this? And I got back and said, possibly, and I asked Kirk a couple of questions, and he said, I'll be back in touch right away. A day went by, a week went by, 2 weeks went by. Then he gets back and he says, okay, he says, I think we've got it all worked out. I've got to get one bit of approval from my chairman, and then I'll have the information. I'll be right back to it. A day went by, a week went by, and finally he got back. And I'll be very candid with you in this room. I thought at that point, I don't think I want to do this if it's going to be this kind of complexity in terms of communication. So communicate. Be the king of deadlines and making things happen. And this is the one, this is priceless, I think, from him. By the way, I will be happy. I'll give you my email address before I leave. If you want all the stuff, just send me an email, and I'll send you everything I have, and anything else that you might be interested in. Build a high quality professional website. How many of you have a personal website? Less than 20%, maybe 15%. Build a high quality professional website that contains all of your material in one simple place. Then he goes, here are a couple of examples from my former students. And he gave me a couple of links to the website. I'd be glad to share those with you. But it's great. I went and looked at them. And I feel like I already kind of know who that person is. Just from seeing what they said, what their philosophy was, what repertoire they showed there, what things they were doing. This just seems so obvious. But again, in this room, I'm very passionate, dedicated, career-focused graduate students, less than 15%, 3% have done that. I put that on top of my list if I would go for it. Listen more than you speak. Be proactive. Anticipate what needs to be done and have ideas on how to do it. If you're in a position of influence, in your first year, just take inventory of everything in order to develop ideas about what the future might look like. Several people mentioned that. And finally, he said, never forget that you have three priorities. Number one is your students. Number two, your students. Number three, your students. That's the only reason we have to celebrate and take this journey of our life. And you're sitting here because you were once a student. Somebody inspired you to start this journey. Now you have the wonderful luxury to be able to take that and share that forward. and some good suggestions from Gary Hill. Unless the program was non-existent, this is talking about moving into a first position. Unless the program was non-existent or a complete disaster, live with what you got for the most part, while carefully assessing what needs to be changed. Before making change, build a supportive coalition of colleagues. Be careful not to get swamped in the inevitable minutia of our job. I can talk about it a little bit later. There is no such thing as being over-prepared, so make time to study and to reflect. And I'll interject. I remember when I first was at Baylor University, and I was in a little session with several other professors, and Stan Campbell, who was a professor of history, was in this discussion group. Then it was near the end of the first semester, the beginning of my second semester. And he said, well, Dad, he said, that's been for a while. How do you feel about university teaching? How do you feel about being in this environment as opposed to being in a high school? I was like, well, just boom, one to the next. And I said, well, I'm in high school. The bell would ring, and another group of students would come in, and I'd teach for an hour, and the bell would ring, and then another group would come in. And now here, I'm really busy on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, but Tuesday and Thursday, it's almost a totally flexible schedule for me. And we talk back and forth, and he said, Richard, he says, never forget that one of the things that Baylor University pays you to do is to sit and think. And develop that trait, that skill, that desire, that passion. Sit and think. Sit and think and dream. And don't think you have to be doing stuff. And stay committed to personal growth. I'm obsessed with trying to learn something new every day. And it's just a commitment that I've always had, and I'm sure that you have. We have to always be pushing the envelope. Who was it that I met before it started that's in Northwestern? Yeah. Mallory told me one time she was at a reception, and there were a number of members of the Chicago Symphony were there. And she said Larry Combs was there. He's still in the class. And somebody said, well, Larry, you're getting close to 70. Are you starting to think about retiring? And he says, oh no, because I think I'm getting better. Every day, get better. This is an interesting spin from Alan McNary. And to me, this is uncharted waters to a great extent. And he didn't give as many specifics as he did just observations. He said, I did a conducting workshop, and I'll leave the name of the university out, last summer. And during a question and answer, one very focused student asked me, and this is, we've thought about this for this, he and I've had this conversation, but how conductors justify programming standard repertoire while stressing the importance of DEI in their classroom, given the pressures we currently receive? Yeah, I'm just asking, do you have any awareness? Is that something you think about at all? It's a fine line we have to walk between, and are we in the art of what we're doing, artistry of making music, or are we in the craft of social engineering? And can we somehow be in both? I think we have to be in both. But it went on and said another observation from the workshop was the people seemed uncomfortable to be seen as independent. My take was that they felt pressure to be whatever other people thought was appropriate. I'm getting some nods on that. I think, and those, my friends, those are the kinds of things we have to sit and think about. Not another fingering on the clarinet that we'll be bad too. And he goes and says, my questions and advice for today's students would stress the need to have the courage to be original and imaginative, to emphasize artistic growth for themselves and their students, and to be able to passionately and respectfully articulate to others the way art joined together in the pursuit of beauty. And as you continue your journey, you must continue to refine your point of view about the passion of what it is that we do. That you can articulate it clearly and with focus. That there needs to be that compelling message for our students, our colleagues, and administration in our community. If a person is not passionate about what it is that they believe, and if they're not at the table to speak that passion, at some point they may be placed on the menu. If you're not a part of the vision moving forward, all of a sudden you may not have the role to play it. At this point, let's just pause for a second, or just I want any comments or questions about any of that? Yeah.
Can I just ask the room a question from what we're talking about on the website? How many of you are have a presence in social media? Many more, and so the website may seem cumbersome and old, and it doesn't move very quickly, and that's the point. Okay, that it is a more fixed thing, and the website is accessible to those who are not engaged in social media, and that's an important thing. So if you are, if you're applying to Nebraska, I can't get to your social media to be able to do that, but I could get to a website if you have one. So that's something to think about. It just as you do.
Wilson, thank you for sharing that. Yes.
I know you mentioned earlier getting too much into the minutia of the job. I just wanted to circle back and ask about that. How you deal with like the sitting and thinking side of the job and balancing that with the day to day.
A couple of thoughts about that. One of them is so always simplistic. You're in control of your own schedule. You're in control of making the priorities. And I think that sometimes you just simply have to say, I have a couple of colleagues that sitting and thinking time, quite candidly, they say it's 5 a.m. They get up in the morning and they make that first. They invest in themselves and in the artistry of what they do. Because let's grant it, a lot of that minutia has to happen during work hours, doesn't it? And so they literally say, the only way I can make it happen is I define a time that I can do that. When I was on campus constantly, I made a point, I don't care unless it was the dean telling me I needed to be someplace. The hour before rehearsal was my time. The door was closed and I was in my world, making sure that I was in my zone when I walked in front of those students an hour later. And the quickest way to make that happen is being able to willingly, with a smile on your face, use the word no. I can't see it that time. I'm sorry, I'm already committed. Or who was it? Cheryl?
Freddie Martin.
Yeah, Freddie Martin, Chris Martin's dad. Made the comment, he said, occasionally he was talking about days rather than, but he said, what you must do is go on your calendar and circle some days and put the word something on there. And then when somebody would call him and say, I need you to come do a clinic for me on the 13th of the month, he would say, I can't do that. I have something on my calendar. But that was his therapy. It worked well for him. He turned out two pretty good sons doing all that. But does that yeah. It's so easy to say, oh, they need me so much, I'm gonna do that. You gotta be selfish. Oh, I can find it. Yeah. Yeah, this is an extension of that. This is actually Simon Rattle. He said, the more you put into yourself, the more you will be able to give back to your students and the music. So be good to yourself. Be selfish. And I think we're most in our world, we're selfless people. We're constantly giving out. Occasionally, be selfish. Questions?
Can I ask another question of the room? Is that okay?
Yeah.
My question for the room is, because my own students have called us out on this before. Anybody sense a contradiction in this sense of be selfish, protect your own time, and yet you need to build your resume to have the you're laughing, to have the experiences, and there's this, you have to do both, to find the balance in that, and it's all true. So that the comment about, maybe 5 a.m. is your time. It's not I'm sleeping at 5 a.m. That's for sure. But there are also some times where it's easier to say no when you're a tenured full professor.
No.
It's easier to be yourself when you're a tenured full professor, and you're not. So again, you've seen all 4 phases now coming out, and do you find that the ability to say no, or how much you're going to change in those various phases?
Oh my God, that's a very good point. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to be much more early on. You have to be much more judicial about when you say yes or when you say no. But you're absolutely right. The reality is, if it has to be 5 a.m., if you're passionate, you make it happen at 5 a.m. I know other people, it's the family's in bed, the kids are asleep, midnight. My score study is midnight to 2 a.m. If it's midnight to 2 a.m., that's when it is. And if you say, I can't do that, I say this with total love and respect in my heart when I say this. You might be in the wrong profession. You have to love it 24/7. It's absolutely essential. Absolutely essential. If no other questions, I'll give you about half a dozen bumper stickers. How many people are heading home today? Yeah, that's 2. These are just some of the things that are really, really powerful and important to me. And I'll preface with saying, I heard an interview, it was actually with an author. It was in a different art form. But, and he was 70 years old. And the interview was actually on NPR radio. And the person doing the interview asked him, well, you're 70 years old. Kind of, how has the stages of your life gone? He said, I turned 50. And he said, I began to realize that maybe I had a little bit of wisdom. And I kept thinking about that. He says, when I turned 60, I really need to be sharing this wisdom. And he said, I made a commitment to everything I could do to give out and embrace. pieces. Then I turned 70. I decided I could say anything I wanted to, and I don't give a damn what anybody thinks about it. And so I'm 83, so I can watch out. I have a pet peeve, and I wish that we use the word artistry more than the word art. You go to any band chat board or any social media, I just yearn for seeing the word artistry. It's all about craft. It's all about doing. It's all about stuff. Craft and doing and stuff is not art. It's the necessity to get to the art. But every day, take a moment, look in the mirror, and say to yourself, I am an artist. What about the band? Quit worrying about that. Quit worrying about the minutiae. Tell yourself you are an artist. Make sure that you never forget or fail to embrace the young band world. The middle school, the high school, their educators too. And if they don't educate, you don't have a job. The more we can nurture them and nurture them. Every day, be prepared to meet someone new who will change the trajectory of your life. Because that's going to happen. Just constantly open to it. You just don't know when it might happen. I was talking to, anybody know Gary Speck? Miami, Ohio, director of band in Miami, Ohio. Long time. He was one of my first students years ago. But he said to me, I recently had a discussion with Jerry Junkin a number of years ago on how many threads run through our lives and what would have happened had we made just one decision differently or did not have just one opportunity or experience that came our way. So the absolute necessity of being totally open every day to someone coming in. And I can stand here and give testimony from now until 3 o'clock in the afternoon on life-changing experiences that I've had that I didn't realize at the moment they were life-changing. When I was going to teach a band camp in Canyon, Texas. Anybody know where Canyon, Texas is? You know where it is?
I'm from Abilene.
Oh, you're from Abilene.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, both Abilene and Canyon, they're not the end of the world, but you can see the end of the world. But I was going to Canyon, Texas for a band camp. I had my fingering charts with me and I was ready to go and teach. And got there and they had a conductor who they had brought in to do the top group. He wasn't much older than me, about 5 years older than me. I'd never heard of him before. His name is Bob Reynolds. And he had just gone from Long Beach to University of Wisconsin. And just by pure fate, he and I had the same coffee break time in the morning. And there were not very many other people that did. All of a sudden, we were having conversations and talking about stuff. And I left that week a different person that showed up and came in a week before. You can't orchestrate those things, you can't predict them, but you've got to be open to them and know and have a sense of awareness when they do that. Be with people you admire. Find people whose thoughts and actions inspire you to be better. Surround yourself with those people, learn from them, and collaborate with them. They are the people you should be hanging out with, involved with, talking to, having dinner with, and working with. Those are the people that will, and there's, some talk about the fact you're really and truly, you're a blend of the 5 people who've had the most impact on you. Okay? You didn't come out of a bag and had water and throw in the microwave for 3 minutes. Just 2 other quick thoughts, one being this. There's no way in the world, you all know people you have been around that have inspired you. We're all blessed for that. But what in the heck is inspiration? That's another one of those sitting things. Things for us. But Simon Sinek talks about the fact that he says, you do not inspire people because of what you say or what you do. It's what other people perceive you believe. It's the way you walk, the way you talk, the way you communicate, the way you frame things. The passion that you have. I got 4 words that are important to me. Art, beauty, passion, inspiration. Whatever combination, and they're not going to be the same in any 2 people, but art, beauty, passion, inspiration. And Simon Sinek went on to say that Martin Luther King did not achieve what he achieved because he had a plan. It's because he had a dream. Students have to be aware of your dream and your vision for them. And finally, there's another fascinating book. You know the book, The Creative Act, Way of Being? I see a couple of nods. By Rick Robin, R-O-B-I-N. And he says, if you know what you want to do and do it, that's the work of a craftsman. But if you begin with a question and use it to guide an adventure or a discovery, then that's the work of an artist. The dream, not the plan. The surprises along the way can expand the work and even the art form itself. And bottom line, your life is a do-it-yourself project. It's a do-it-yourself project. Any questions or comments? I'm very humbled to have had this opportunity to share with you. I said at the very beginning, and I had not thought about this at all, but it was so cool watching you people walk in and thinking, you're going to continue the journey that I have embraced for 60 years. And what I've invested in, what Bob Robinson invested in, what Jerry Chuckett, whoever, name the people you want to name. You're the next. Knock it out of the ballpark, please. Have a great holiday. Thank you for sharing this. And I don't have another place to be until noon. If anybody has any questions or want to chat for a moment, I'm here. No rush.